To know if you're succeeding, you need to have a measurable goal. This could be something like reducing the time from engineering readiness to production availability. You're implementing DevOps for a reason. It's a reason that the business, executive sponsors, and team need to understand and will help to motivate them to support this transformation. If this reason cannot be expressed in measurable terms, how will you know that you have achieved this goal? How will you communicate progress toward this goal? How will you recognize if your efforts are actually slowing progress instead of accelerating it? Once you have established your goal, you need to know how you're doing today. Progressing towards the goal requires comparing new results with current results. For these reasons, DevOps embraces the principles of measurement and improvement. If your goal is to reduce the friction that inhibits delivery of applications from engineering to users, then you must measure how much friction there is today and continue to measure that while you change the process to see if you have succeeded. If you don't do this, you're just changing processes with your fingers crossed, hoping something will get better. If you measure and review your results, you can demonstrate the value of your changes and assess additional improvements. What are you measuring and improving? Both the DevOps process and the applications you are delivering must be measured because most must be continually improving. You're not just measuring the application or the individual development or operations activities, you're talking about measuring the overall process. You certainly need to improve the app, and there are many metrics to be gathered here that you can use to determine that the app you are building is making improvements. You also certainly need to be effective in the ways you implement specific practices and use each tool. But given that DevOps is fundamentally about improving your ability to more readily bring an application from engineering to your customers, you need to ensure that process is actually improving and that it continues to do so. You need to make sure that you are improving the tools that you are using and your techniques for applying them. Metrics can be feared as a tool that will be used to micromanage or second-guess the activities of the team. But the real goal of metrics is to enable the team to observe actual behaviors of the system, whether that is the application, the tool, or the processes in use, evaluate current behavior as compared to prior behavior, celebrate the improvements, and target the opportunities for further improvement. It's not about finding fault, it's about identifying and showing success. Measurements allow the team to discuss changes to code, tools, or processes in terms of objective assessments rather than on emotion or opinion. The rapid feedback loops enable teams to make changes, knowing that if the attempt fails, they may learn something and they will have an opportunity to try something else. It also enables teams to identify the true goals of their activities and track their progress towards those goals. It's quite easy to focus on improving the speed of a small section of code and lose track of the greater goal of actually making more sales. Choosing the right metrics to track and assess helps bring this into focus. Finally, the results achieved can be used to justify further use of DevOps across more businesses and to reward and encourage improvements large and small. There are numerous metrics that can be collected and tracked, and these need to be assessed in terms that we have already discussed. But the individual metrics tend to fall into three broad categories: people, process, and technology metrics. People or cultural metrics are important, but a little harder to assess. DevOps starts with some fundamental cultural changes. Conflict in the workplace, stress, and burnout are difficult but not impossible to measure. Engaged workers are simply more productive than disengaged workers. And as the State of DevOps report shows, employee job satisfaction is the best indicator of a highly performing IT organization. You can measure across a number of key cultural indicators around feelings about change, failure, going to work, and workload. A simple measure would be employee turnover. High turnover indicates unhappy employees. Customer satisfaction is also a tremendous metric for DevOps, especially if it is measured from very immediate and dynamic sources like Twitter and blogs. Teams can get nearly immediate feedback to decide whether customers like a new feature in this way. Process metrics ensure that changes made through DevOps practices are having tangible benefits for the team. These are frequently the best metrics to use to communicate the bottom line improvements for the business. Sharing these metrics with a broad audience is often a great way to promote the work of the team and further expand DevOps use in an organization. Technology metrics help the team to identify areas where tools and code can be more effective. These metrics are often some of the easiest to collect. Though some of the more detailed technology metrics may only be useful to those building specific parts of an application or who are managing specific tools, those metrics may also be the most critical to understanding and improving application behaviors. We've identified a couple of metrics within these three categories, but there are many more that are very useful and may be appropriate for any team implementing DevOps practices. Note, however, when you start to look closely at DevOps metrics, you'll find that there are quite a lot of them available. Before you dive into DevOps metrics, it's important to understand clearly which metrics are most important to you and how they apply to your DevOps program. If you have not identified your goals, you could spend a lot of time identifying metrics that look very interesting, but don't really measure what you want to know and that don't actually communicate or motivate the behaviors you're trying to drive. But if you focus your attention on identifying the truly useful data, you can put the data you have to great use and achieve your intended goals.